Okay, so um moving on to what we were trying to do again, policies and procedures and handbooks. So yeah. So for handbook, there are a lot of things you need to put into consideration, and then it starts from the company's overview, purpose of the handbook, welcome messages, the reason why this policy needs to be in place, which is the purpose of this handbook or this policy that you want to do. So there are different things you want to put in a policy. Some people start with recruitment because before an employee comes into the organization, you start with you recruiting the employee. But this particular template is saying that what are the types of employment that you have within the organization. Some organizations have temporary staff, some have full-time staff, some have part-time staff, and some have contract or ad hoc staff. So you need to also understand what is in your organization, right? And then put it there. For my organization, the organization I have, they are full-time employees. We do not bring in temporary staff or part-time staff or even contracts. So they're all permanent full-time employees, people that will go through probationary stage, and then if they are fit to be within the organization, we convert them to full-time permanent staff. Then another thing you need to also take into consideration is nature of employment or work mode, right? Nature of the employment. A lot of things is in relation with this. For my organization, we work remotely, and then some people work from the office hybrid, right? And then also another thing is if your company may terminate this employment relationship at any view, right? If it is without cause, this is not in alignment with labor law. You cannot bring in someone and say that this person should go without cause. Yes, some people put in economic reasons, right? Which in recent time, according to labor practices, a lot of cases out there is something that they also look at, and what it still does not make it right, because recruitment is a lot more than you just bringing in people. You need to have done a foresight or foresee that, oh, if I bring in this person, I'm able to pay this person, or this person would add value to my organization that would ensure its ROI upon the organization. Do you understand that? Then employee relations, right? You also need to state the working conditions, the wages, the compensation and benefits that your company offers. If your company does HMO, you have to put it there. If your company does, COLA allowance, COLA is cost of living allowance. This is just a term for organizations that are willing to give benefits to their employees. You need to state it there. You need to state it there. Then grievances procedures, how you guys do your grievances within the organization. You need to also ensure that this is also stated in your handbook. Grievances is very, very important. A lot of people do disciplinary policy. Yes, you can have disciplinary policies, which means that if an employee errs or if an employee does something that is wrong, these are the things that would happen to the employees. Either the person receives a verbal warning, a written warning, this person collects a query, or this person is suspended, or this person is terminated, right? Anything, that's a disciplinary procedure. When it comes to grievances, you need to give room for grievances from employees, because employees would want to defend themselves. That is why we should have a grievances policy. Typically, we put in disciplinary and grievances policy together. But it is very important you take note of grievances policy and you adhere to it, so that an employee would not come and say our HR is one-sided. So that our employee would not say our HR is one-sided. Then probationary period. Some organization does 6 months probationary period. Some do 3 months. So it depends on what you need within the organization. If as an HR professional you got into an organization and there is no HR in place, it is a startup, no HR in place, and you are asked to put together the employee handbook, you can use the employment labor law just to ensure it tallies with whatever you are putting together. For example, the labor law states that after a certain period, an employee enters your organization without receiving his or her contract letter, the employee is deemed a staff if they did not receive within a certain period. So you need to be very, very well abreast on what the labor law is stating. If your notice period is 1 month, you need to state it. If it is 2 weeks during probationary period, you need to state it. You need to be very explicit with whatever you are writing. Very, very explicit with whatever you are writing. And before you decide to cascade any handbook to any staff, ensure that it is signed off or approved by the management. So probationary period, you need to determine, is it 3 months or 6 months, depending on your company's policy. Some people, some organizations, they do probationary period. It differs within the organization, it varies because of the weight of a role. For example, a CEO role might have a probationary period of 6 months. It's because of the technicality of the role. The responsibilities are different, and a customer service role can be about 3 months probationary period. There are two different roles that has weight, but the weight differs. Then another thing is dress code. Dress code means that on Monday you're expected to wear suits, or you're expected to dress formal. Different dress code for different organizations. In banks, they have their dress code. Their dress code is typically colors. You cannot expect somebody that is working in UBA to be wearing blue. Are we together? Do you see the reason why it is very important? You need to take note of your industry. Please, I need reactions. Are we together?
Yes, ma, we are together, ma.
Yes. So dress code policy is also very important. If you are not having a standalone policy for that, you need to put this in your handbook. In a tech organization, their dress code might be, you must dress decent, but we are not saying you should always dress formal. Just dress decent, because it's a tech organization. They are laid back. They are so chilled. In a banking sector, they will say dress casual or dress neat. And then there's even some banks that would say you cannot pack your hair to the office, or as a cashier or as a teller. That is because of the fact that you are facing customers, so you need to look good at all times. There are certain wigs you need to put on. There's a way you need to look. You cannot look as if the whole world problem is on your shoulder. You need to square up. These are dress code. Banks do not take with levity dress code policy. You cannot work in a bank that their logo, everything about the bank is red, and then you are wearing blue as a teller. And they have competitors that their colors are blue. You can't do that. That is why an handbook policy is very, very important in any organization you find yourself. Internet usage. This is also very important. If you don't have it in your handbook, please go and update your handbook. A lot of people would come and use the internet to download some things, to download the XX movies, X-rated movies. You need to have a policy that speaks to the fact that internet usage is primarily for business. Because if they expose company system to some sites, it can shut down or risk the organization at large. So it's very, very important you put this into consideration within or as an HR professional. Social media. This is employer branding. You also need to state to your employees that they're ambassadors of the organization, and they should not in any way go online and say, "Oh, that cowrie-wise, I use this I use this thing. I was not able to withdraw this thing." No, you don't do that. Or you don't say that financial institution, I was not able to do this. I was not able to do not do that. Because this is where you work and this is where you earn. So you should be an ambassador of where you work. Use of company's property. Use of company's property should be for company-related purpose. Harassment, discrimination, violence. The organization frowns at all of this. And then leave. In fact, leave is one policy that all organizations must have. because employees are very, very keen when it comes to entitlements such as their time off, is it paid, what is the labor entitlement for that, right? For example, for sick leave, an employee is entitled according to labor law to 12 days paid sick leave a year, maximum a year, right? So the law now further state that if it precedes that, then companies can now decide what to take, right? Some organization will say if you are using more than 3 months on sick leave or something, then because of business purposes, would have to, end our agreement or our contract, right? So a lot of things out there. You need to also know that, okay, for exam leave, how many are you giving an employee for examination leave in a year? For study leave, what is applicable to an employee? All of these things must be stated. For maternity leave, how many days leave is applicable to an employee? Maternity leave, according to labor law, is 3 months. 3 months maternity leave. Paternity leave, according to labor law, is 7 days, right? But some organizations do 5 days. Some organizations do 5 days, right? It's maternity. I think maternity leave. I mean, paternity leave has been updated. I think it's about 14 days now. Please let me confirm. According to Nigerian labor law, paternity leave is how many days? So all of these things are what you must know, and nobody is an island of knowledge. Nobody, exactly. Yeah, thank you so much. So now, according to Nigerian labor law, I think paternity leave is on the net is saying that it is 14 days. 14 days. So Nigerian labor law does not explicitly say that this is what it gives for private sector, right? But federal government civil service, they've already started, enforcing 14 days, right? But organizations still do 7 days, organizations still do 5 days. These are things. In fact, even the government sector for maternity leave, I think there was conversation about extending it or making it 6 months. Who heard about that? Who heard about that? Some states have started enforcing 6 months maternity leave for new mothers. Who heard about that? No one. No one heard about it. Am I still on this class?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So some states, especially civil servants, federal governments, right? They started enforcing 6 months maternity leave for civil servants. But for private sector is still very keen on 3 months maternity leave. So annual leave, some organizations do 20 working days a year. Some do 15 working days a year. The minimum, according to labor law, is 6 working days. What is stated in Nigerian labor law is 6 working days. That's an employee should have at least 6 working days leave in a year, which is called annual leave, right? Then sick leave, like I said earlier, casual leave is also a leave that comes into play. Most organizations ensure that you have exhausted your annual leave before you can utilize your casual leave. Bereavement leave, or they also call it compassionate leave. For compassionate leave, this is when somebody's close person or close ties. Now it has caveats because it only covers either your mother or your father or your brother, or probably you have close ties with your grandparents that are staying with you, or you're living with your uncle, right? Which sometimes might be subject to investigation. This is when this bereavement or compassionate leave covers them, either when you lose one of them. Study leave, I've mentioned it. Paternity leave, I've mentioned it. Maternity leave, you have also mentioned it. Then you also state the mode of leave administration. For my organization, if you want to apply for leave, you have to apply a week before. Some organizations would say you have to apply 2 weeks before. Emergency leave, you need to ensure that you are in communication with your employer at least 24 hours before. right? If it is something that happens on your way to work, something you need to promptly inform the line manager. For leave application differs by company. Some people have a platform, a CRM platform or an HR platform that they just need to log on their leave details and it gets approved by their line manager. They get back the email that their leave has been approved. Some people need to send an email, right, attaching a letter and asking for approval before they can proceed on leave. Compensation and benefits. You also need to state that how do you do your payroll? You do not need to go into the nitty-gritty, but do you pay weekly? Do you pay bi-weekly? Do you pay monthly? So you need to also state in which or what channel they will be paid. For banks typically make payments from 25th, from 20, 22nd, 24, 25th of every month. Some organizations mode of payments can be every last Friday of the month. Some organization mode of payments might be on the 25th of every month, on the 26th of every month. So it differs. Overtime, if your company is doing overtime payments, you also need to state that. I've also mentioned benefits, that you also need to state benefits, HMO, pension, group life insurance. Is there any other pension like COLA allowance? All of these things ought to also be stated. Health and safety is also very, very important. What are the safety procedures within the organization? Is there a fire extinguisher in place? How do they operate this fire extinguisher? Is there anybody they need to call promptly in case of any hazard at all within the organization? These are things you need to take note of. Hygiene, alcohol and drug. People tend to also impute that alcohol is the consumption or influence of alcohol while at work is highly prohibited. Then you also need to also put into place professional development, which means that what is the succession planning in place within an organization, right? What is that thing that is within an organization that wants to make an employee stay and say, in 2 years, I should have moved from being an officer to being an associate. What is that resources or that capacity building thing, initiative you've put in place to ensure that that employee is meeting these targets or meeting the succession plan in place? Training and development is also part of things that contribute to professional development. Performance evaluation. Performance management is also a very key policy that every organization must have. Are you doing the 360 performance degree appraisal, or are you doing the 270 performance degree appraisal? Are you going by traditional way, or are you using an HR platform for performance management process? So performance management process is something that must be open to all employees, because the key reason why you are employing people is to ensure they are productive and they are bringing in returns on investment to the organization. So performance management is non-negotiable. Then what is the modus operandi for terminating employment? These are conversations or things you must have in your employee handbook. On what ground is termination done? What are the grievous offenses that is being, that allows for termination within an organization? For example, theft, for example, lying, for example, violence. These are things that they will tell you that your employment is hereby terminated with immediate effect. What are the different types of termination, right? What are the various circumstances in which employees is terminated? It might be resignation, it might be termination, it might be dismissal, or immediate termination. It might even be layoff. Layoff can be because of several reasons. It might be because of economic instances. It might be because of economic instances. It might be because of low productivity. It might be because of age. It might be because of medical conditions. That's why a lot of things causes layoff. Recently, tech organizations out there abroad home and local, home and abroad, are using this term, are using this style of termination a lot, layoff, because they cannot meet the reality of paying their staffs anymore, right? So layoff is very, 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 very common as one of the circumstances in which employment is terminated. But in as much as you lay off people, there has to be certain cushion, certain measures to put in place to cushion the effects of this layoff. Then there's also retirement. There's also retirement. Then for resignation, what do you do before an employee resignation happens? Exit interview. Some people do stay interview before an employee even says I want to go. You have to do stay interview. When an employee now says, "Oh, I'm going by 1 month," you also have to have exit interviews. What happened? What are the things we can do to ensure you stay? These are exit interviews that has to be in place, right? So this is basically the basics of this is basically the basics um of employment or of HR handbook or procedures within the organization. It differs. If you are an HR professional in an organization, you need to know what works for your organization. For my organization, before an employee goes, the person has to fill in an exit form. He gets on a call. What are the things that we could have done to make you stay? Right? Okay, what are the things that you feel is better done? You feel we can better do in your role? So that when another person comes on board, we implement it. We know you are going, fine. But what are the things you think we can do? So that when another person goes, this person will not be facing the challenges you are facing. This is another thing that we also put in place in an organization. My own handbook, we didn't put health and safety because we work remotely, right? For health and safety in their premises, that they need to, ensure they are safe, where their working condition is safe. Yes, it's there. But because we are not really an on-site kind of organization, I do not place much importance on, physical hazard, right, within where I work. Do you understand? So there are lots of things you need to put into consideration when you are doing or drafting your handbook. So when you are drafting your handbook, one thing you need to do is just sit down. You can start with sketching it. So once you sketch it, sit down and then think of each department and be like, is this relevant to our organization? If it's not relevant, tweak it to ensure it is relevant to your organization. Your handbook does not have to be ambiguous. It does not have to be ambiguous. If it is ambiguous, your people will not understand it, and then at the end of the day, it's not relevant. It is not relevant. Your handbook has to stand the test of time. That is why it is very important that once you have an handbook, you review it from time to time. Another thing is every employee has to adopt your handbook. If it is signed by the management, it is not a document that an employee would say, I'm not taking to this handbook, I'm not going to sign off it. No, because these are laid down practices that has to be adhered to for you to have a smooth running of your organization. So it has to be acknowledged by everyone. Now, you have an handbook, and not everybody can sign off this handbook because they feel like, am I now going to print and sign? No, you don't need to do that. Just tell them that print the last page. It is their sign off. As long as they have the digital copy of the handbook, they can always read on it. But they need to sign off on your handbook. In fact, if possible, all the policies you have, they need to sign off. So what I did for my organization is for the policies that we have, I made sure that I cascaded it. Because how do you cascade handbook or policies? It's more like a training session for them. You cannot just give employees handbook and tell them, go and read it and then go and sign off. No, you need to make them understand why you are putting in place these things. They have to trust you to be able to sign it and to be able to adhere to it. It's a two-way thing, it's a two-way process. So once I've been able to read all of my policies to my employees, then I'm now going to bring a checklist. And then everybody, unit by unit, their name would be by the side. They're supposed to sign off it that this policy has been read to me and I understand the consequences if I go against it. They sign off it. These are ways you can ensure sanity within your organization. Thank you, everyone. Have I made a lot of sense to you all?
Yes, ma.
All right. So if you have any question and proceed, I am going to record. Any question at all?